Hello everybody, kumusta kayo? And so we have watched the a clear explanation coming uh, from different pastors and even religious leaders from different walks of faith, okay, about the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, how it should does it should or should it happen 2,000 years ago or not? So it's very clear, right? Doon na lahat. So this time, sabi nga kanina, di ba, our victory is not the crucifixion, but it is the resurrection. The resurrection of Christ. And when we talk about resurrection, what does it mean? Okay. So ito yung pag-aaralan natin this chapter. So we'll be discussing about resurrection. Meaning of resurrection. So sabi niya dito, resurrection means to come back to life, and to come back to life implies that we have been dead. Okay? So, ang ibig sabihin pala, pag sinabi nating resurrection is to put back our life. Okay? So, therefore, to fathom the meaning of resurrection, we must clarify biblical concept of life and death. So, tingnan natin, ano bang concept ng Bible regarding life and death? Ma-remember nyo nung may nagpaalam kay Jesus na namatay yung relatives niya? Tapos ano sabi ni Jesus? Okay? That is written in the book of Luke, chapter 9, verse 60. Sabi niya doon, Jesus said, leave the dead to bury their own dead. And then tinanong nga niya si Jesus, paano kaya lilibing ng patay yung patay? Okay? And that is how people accept the words of Jesus 2,000 years ago. So makita yung difference before tsaka ngayon? Can you imagine the difference in terms of mind setting before and now? Are you brothers and sisters? Parang nung sinasabi ni Jesus Christ 2,000 years ago, sabi niya, this is how you will go to the kingdom of heaven. You must be born again. Sining unang nagtanong sa kanya? Ma-remember niya? Ma-remember niyo kung sino nagtanong? Si Nicodemus, right? Tinanong si Jesus, do you mean na kailangan kong bumalik sa sinapupunan ng aking magulang para ipanganak muli? And then ano sabi ni Jesus? Ikaw yung pinakamagaling sa lahat ng mga Jews. Kung ikaw mismo hindi mo maintindihan yung sinasabi ko, how much more to the ordinary people? Okay? So this is coming from the word of Jesus. Leave the dead to bury their own dead. And kung titignan natin, kung iintindihin natin kung anong ibig sabihin nun, hindi naman natin ini-interpret Linilinaw natin yung expression. Okay? Ano ba talagang ibig sabihin ni Jesus Christ 2,000 years ago to this? So from these words of Jesus, it is clear that the Bible contains two different concepts of life and death. Do you think so? Aju no aju?
Aju.
Yan. So merong dalawang klaseng death na pinapakita dito. First is death means the end of physical life, as was the case of the disciples' deceased father who was to be buried. Life in that sense means the state in which the physical self maintains its physiological function. So yung sinasabing dead na dito, it is the end of the physical life. Yung biological interaction ng mga iba't ibang system sa katawan na wala na, nag-end yung interaction. Okay. So yun yung sinasabi nito, yung physiological function ng katawan natin na wala. End of the activity of our physical body. So yun yung unang sinasabing dead. Okay? The second concept of life and death concerns those living who had gathered to bury the deceased man, and this death refers to leaving the bosom of God's love and falling under dominion of Satan. And the corresponding concept of life refers to the state of living in accordance with God's will within the dominion of God's infinite love. So the second concept of death dito is what? It is the result of the human fall. It's not a end of the physiological function of our body, but it is a departing from God's love. Aju? And then connecting ourselves to Satan's love. Satan's false love. Aju? Kaya nga kung titignan natin, di ba? Sabi niya in John 3:16, "For God so loved the world, and He gave His one and only begotten Son, that whoever believe in Him shall not perish and have eternal life." Hindi mawawala, ngunit magkaroon ng panghabang buhay. Once we are connected to the love of God through Jesus Christ. Aju? Di ba minsan na-experience yung down na down kayo, tapos anong gagawin nyo para sa ganun magkaroon kayo ng strength? Di ba? You needed to go to churches. You needed to reconnect yourself to a figure, a religious figure that can guide us and help us to elevate our spirituality. Does it make sense, brothers and sisters? And these are the death that is being presented in the Bible. So pag sinabi nating life, it is not just our physical life, but it also talks about our connection to God. And when we talk about death, it is not just a physiological dysfunction of our body, but it also denotes our connection to Satan. Kaya nga, after they ate the fruit, because they completely connected to Satan, what had happened to Adam and Eve? They die, but not physically, but it is spiritual death. Aju?
Aju.
Kaya kung titignan natin, ang kamatayan na binigay ng human fall, it is not a physical death. Kasi kung titignan natin na buhay pa sina Adam and Eve for 900 years, nagkaroon pa ng 3 anak. So which of the two refers to the death brought about by the fall of the human ancestors? If we will go back to the principle of creation, the flesh is the clothing of the spirit. Tama ba? Kaya nga, lagi natin sinasabi even in chapter 1, na sometimes we even call the physical body as the second internal nature. Aju? Yan. So just as one discard worn out clothes, the flesh is to be discarded when it has grown old and weak. Only the unclothed spirit self enters the spirit world and lives there eternally. So yung spiritual self natin, yun yung ginawa ni God na magkaroon ng connection sa Kanya, and it would be eternal. Okay? And magkakaroon ng eternal characteristics yung spirit natin once we will accomplish or we will experience and practice unconditional relationship of the physical and spiritual body while we are living on earth, so that we can practice a lifestyle that is beneficial in the spiritual world. Aju?
Aju.
Yeah. And that's the time that we can live eternally. Okay? Kaya nga pag sinabi nating eternal life, it is not yung even our physical body will live eternally. Kasi merong limit ang physical body natin. But our connection to God, there is no limit. And that is being expressed by our spiritual senses, spiritual selves. Na it can be matured through constant practice while we are living on earth. Kaya kung titignan natin sa section 6 ng chapter 1, di ba? Our physical body, or having a physical body is an opportunity for us to develop a lifestyle para na sa ganun, merong ikakopy or merong merong i-embody ng spiritual self natin. Okay? Na pag hindi natin maging lifestyle dito, okay? Do you think we can make it as a lifestyle also in the spirit world? We can change immediately in the spirit world? Sabi nga, whatever you bound on earth, it will be bound in heaven. Whatever you lose on earth, it will be lost in heaven. Ibig sabihin ko, anong ginagawa natin dito, yun yung magdedetermine kung ano tayo. Okay? Kung anong lifestyle, anong practices ang ginagawa natin dito sa mundo, yun yung magiging buhay ng spirit natin pagdating sa kabilang buhay. Kaya nga kung titignan natin, di ba, sinasanay tayo dito from birth until we die to practice a lifestyle of living for others unconditionally so that we can experience eternal relationship of love and be connected together. Aju? Okay? So that is what we call spiritual life, or our spirit lives eternally by our connection to God. But this was lost after Adam and Eve eat the fruit. Okay? Nawalan sila ng connection kay God, kaya ano nangyari? Nawalan na rin sila ng spiritual life. Okay? Ano na lang nanatili sa kanila? It is just concentrated on the physical body. Aju? Kaya nga nagkaroon ng reversal. Okay? So if that is the process of how human being disconnected to God and received the death through Satan, okay? In line with the resurrection, ibig sabihin, pag sinabi nating resurrection is coming from death to life. Okay? So resurrection may be defined as the process of being restored from death caused by the fall to life, from the realm of Satan's dominion to the realm of God's direct dominion through the providence of restoration. So pag sinabi nating resurrection, it is equivalent to restoring back our original nature. Removing the old self that we have and then practicing a new life that is in accordance to God's purpose and God's plan, not in accordance to Satan's lie. Kasi kung titignan natin, after the fall, nabuhay tayo sa buhay na puno ng kasinungalingan. Tama po ba? Does it make sense? Everything is lie. Tingnan mo, ang ganda-ganda ng, sabi, ang ganda-ganda ng mga bagay sa paligid, pero pag nakikita ng ipis, hindi na maganda. Right? Pero they are still part of the creation. Meron silang uniqueness. Aju? And this is how God educated Adam and Eve. That everything, even yung pinakapangit, there is still such certain characteristics of beauty. Aju? Kaya nga sabi ni God, everything is good. The way Adam and Eve should see things, it should be in accordance towards goodness, towards the purpose of God. How happy God is when He created all of these things. Okay? Kaya kung titignan natin, what changes does resurrection cause in human being? Okay? Pag sinabi natin resurrection, change towards resurrection, Adam and Eve died when they ate of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Nevertheless, no significant external change took place in them. Walang nagbago externally. Right? Hindi sila namatay externally, but nabuhay pa sila for 900 years, nagkaroon pa ng mga anak. So it means that at most, there were momentarily changes in their countenance due to anxiety and fear they felt over having fallen. Ano yun? Nagkaroon sila ng fear. Right? Kaya pag meron lang tayo nakitang ahas, anong nararamdaman natin? Pag meron tayong nakitang daga, anong nararamdaman natin? Di ba? There is a sense of hatred. Aju? Lalong-lalo na when we see each other na magkaiba yung characteristics natin. Can we look at each other as an opportunity to learn? More than just fear na, baka maagawan ako nito ng position. Maagawan ako nito ng pwesto. Okay? So likewise, no significant external changes should be expected to take place in fallen people when they are resurrected to the state prior to the fall. So ganun din sa atin. Walang magbabago physically, but the one that will change, it will be our way of relating with others. our way of feeling the presence of each other. So Jesus was truly a man who fulfilled the purpose of creation. Nevertheless, judged by his outward appearance, Jesus was not noticeably different from ordinary people. Meron ba pagkakaiba si Jesus sa mga ordinary na tao? There's no difference, right? Anong kaiba ni Jesus? Meron siyang heart. Bigger heart to embrace anybody. Embrace even the sinners. Embrace even leprous. Aju? And this is the change na sinasabi natin in accordance towards God. Kasi kung titignan natin, ano bang create ni Satan? It is boundaries. Right? Boundaries and walls between us and between our brothers and sisters. Kaya nga kung titignan natin, okay, after the failure of Adam and Eve, doon na nagsimula si God to raise up a person who can stand to fulfill the purpose of creation. And doon na rin nag-start yung providence of resurrection, right then and right after the failure of Adam and Eve. Kaya nga sabi niya, di ba, wala na akong magagawa but to find another person. So the providence of resurrection is the providence of restoration, and thus providence of recreation. So the providence of resurrection is carried out in accordance with the principle of creation. Ano bang nasa principle of creation? Diba? We have to fulfill the three great blessings, and we have to complete our growing period up to totally become one with God, surpassing the period of indirect dominion and going into the period of direct dominion of God, meaning we are completely one and completely practicing God's harmonious reciprocal relationship of the subject and object, embodied within individual and being expressed with our partners. Aju? Centering on Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and in us centering on man and woman that should live eternally. Okay? Yeah. So if that is being restored, okay, all those people that comes after that, they will be receiving what we call the merit of the age. So the merit of the age has increased in proportion to the foundation of heart laid by the prophets, sages, and righteous people who came before us. And the subsequent generation benefits from the merit of the age. And second, God's responsibility is to give us His word and guidance, and our responsibility is to believe and practice. So once again, God will give His words to us. Kaya very important yung responsibility natin to believe and practice. Kaya nga sabi ni Jesus Christ 2,000 years ago, di ba? Please believe me, this is the work of my Father in heaven. Hindi ko to gawain. Gawain to ng Ama kong nasa langit. Okay? And ang kinakailangan lang gawin ng tao during the time is just to believe and practice it. Okay? So third is the resurrection of the spirit can be achieved only through earthly life in the physical self. Kaya nga sabi ni Jesus, di ba, in the Lord's Prayer, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as well as in heaven. So everything, okay, starts in the physical world. Although the creation starts in the spiritual world, but when we talk about the fulfillment of God's plan and God's purpose, it starts here on earth. Through making our life centered on practicing and perfecting the harmonious relationship of God's dual characteristics. Okay? And after we can fulfill that on earth, that's the time that we needed to extend. Kaya nga, hindi lang dapat tayo ang iniisip natin. We have to think about our ancestors. That we should bring them and pull them to be connected back to God. So the providence of resurrection is to be completed through three ordered stages. Hindi siya yung bigla na lang na mangyari. but it also follows the same pattern, going through the three ordered stages. And that is within the physical world. Aju? Aju po ba? Yeah. So
Adyo.
let's see how is the providence of resurrection for people on earth. So kung titignan natin, based on the history, the 2,000 years from Adam to Abraham may be called the age of the providence to lay the foundation for resurrection. So from Adam to Abraham, hindi pa yan mismo yung resurrection period. But that is just a foundation to lay the providence of or the foundation for resurrection. Ano yun? Para sa ganun, ma-receive ulit natin ang word ni God. Kaya nga, after 2,000 years, anong na-receive ng tao? Na-receive ulit yung word ni God centering on the Ten Commandments. Aju? Pero hanggang doon lang ba ang buhay natin? Hanggang doon lang ba pag-receive ng Ten Commandments? Kung titignan natin, ang Ten Commandments is being set in order to welcome Jesus Christ. So the 2,000 years from Abraham to Jesus may be called the age of the providence of formation stage resurrection, or age of justification by works. Okay, upon their death, the believers of this era entered and abide in the form spirit level of the spirit world. Okay? Ang kailangan natin is hindi lang yung word, but it is the embodiment of the word. Okay? Kaya nga, even Jesus Christ came from the word of God and then became substantial through, okay? And became the substantial image of God here on earth. Yan. And the 2,000 years from Jesus to the returning Christ, kasi hindi nagawa ni Jesus yung dapat niyang i-fulfill to complete the three great blessing. Okay? Hanggang first blessing lang siya, anong sabi niya? I will come again. Pero is it the same word din ba ang dadali niya? Okay? Kung titignan natin yung Ten Commandments for the people of the Old Testament. Yung gospel for the people of the New Testament. And another form of truth, another expression of truth will be coming with a higher and richer content. Kaya nga sabi niya, a time will come that I will speak plainly about the Father. He will not talk about symbol anymore, but plainly about the Father. And that is in the level of growth stage resurrection or justification by faith. So upon their death, the believers in this era enter and abide in paradise and the life spirit level of the spiritual world. Okay? And anong iniwan sa atin ni Jesus Christ? It is a promise that He will come again to complete. Okay? Kaya nga in the book of Revelation is the coming of the one that will unlock the seven seals. Okay? So the era when people are to complete the providence of resurrection through the returning Christ is called the age of the providence of completion stage resurrection. And this time, ang age na to is justification by attendance. It is not only by faith, because Jesus Christ already said 2,000 years ago, faith without work is dead. Kahit naniniwala ka, pag hindi mo isinasabuhay at hindi mo binibigay kay God as a form of your connection to God, that's still nothing. Okay? That's why upon their death, the believers of this era will enter and abide in the kingdom of heaven in heaven, which is divine spirit level of the spiritual world. And through this, ito yung magbibigay sa atin ng opportunity to completely one with God. Aju? Yeah. So that is centering on the central figure that is being sent by God. So how about those ordinary people? Those spirit. Okay? And this is now the importance of our restoring or liberating our ancestors. Because we needed to liberate them because they are the first and foremost who guided us to be connected to the Messiah of the present era. So the spirit of people who died before they could reach perfection during their earthly life can be resurrected only by returning to the earth and completing their unaccomplished responsibility through cooperation with earthly people. Kaya nga minsan, di ba, meron tayong mga nakikita mga spirits. Meron mga nagbabother sa atin na spirit. Okay? Hindi nila tayo ini-istorbo, but they are requesting if we can help them to be resurrected. And once we will cooperate with them, that's the time that they will also be resurrected. Aju? And this is what we call the process of returning resurrection. Or in other religions, sinasabi nilang reincarnation. Aju? Yan. So the returning resurrection of the spirit of Israelites and Christian, this is how it is being done. So after the advent of Jesus, the former spirit of the Old Testament age all returned to earth and assisted faithful people on earth to attain the level of life spirit. By this, they too received the same benefit, entered paradise together. We call this God stage returning resurrection. Kaya nga, anong sabi ni Jesus Christ? Doon sa kasama niya na crucify. Nasa kanan ba yon? Nasa kaliwa?
Kanan.
Nasa kanan, di ba? Kasi yung nasa kaliwa, sabi niya, kung ikaw nga talagang anak ng Diyos, iligtas mo ang sarili mo, iligtas mo rin kami. Pero yung nasa kanan, ano sabi niya? Naniniwala ko na ikaw ay mabuting tao. And then sabi niya kay Jesus, from now on, you will be with me in paradise. Aju? Yeah. So after the second advent, the life spirit of the New Testament age will all return to the earth to help faithful people on earth to attain the level of divine spirit. By this, they too will receive the same benefit and enter the heavenly kingdom together. We call this completion stage returning resurrection. So during the time of the second advent, kaya nga kung titignan natin, na-open na yung spiritual world. And we are now receiving messages. Right? Many people are receiving messages that the Messiah is already here. And the thing that they needed to do is to find the victorious Messiah. Kaya nga even tayo, di ba? Tayo rin, hindi naman tayo bigla na lang nag-join this movement eh. We have received a continuous guidance and inspiration from the spirit world, from our ancestors who have maintained their faith towards God and towards the Bible. Tama po ba? Have you experienced that? Yan. So sila yung nag-guide sa atin. Kaya nga we needed to liberate them as well. That is our portion of responsibility. Because once we will liberate them and we will fulfill their guidance to us to be connected to the Messiah, that's the time also that they will receive the same benefit as what we have right now. Aju? Kaya very important yung in vertical liberation, ancestors liberation, plus yung horizontal liberation natin. Horizontal is physical liberation, vertical is spiritual liberation. Our spiritual lineage. Our spiritual ancestors. Aju? And that's the way in order for us to create kingdom of heaven here on earth and then expand it to heaven. Aju? Yan. So this is the returning resurrection of spirit who abide outside paradise. Paano yung mga good people? So a spirit who believed in a religion other than Christianity during his lifetime seek a counterpart among the earthly people of the same religion as he believed during his earthly life. He descends to the person of his choice and guides him. When he helps that person fulfill the purpose of providence of restoration, they both receive the same benefit. Okay? Yan. Ma-remember niyo yung story nung autobiography ni Father, paano nasulat? Who among you heard that story? Di ba ang sumulat ng as a peace-loving global citizen is not a member? Have you encountered that story?
No, sir.
Di ba? It is not a member ang sumulat. But it is one of the writer of Gimyang Publishing Company. na sila yung #1 na publishing company ng mga science books sa Korea. And he don't believe to Reverend Moon. He don't believe to Father. Isa siya sa mga nag-negative kay Father. But when he wanted to write the life of the Messiah, the new Messiah, he's always directed to through Father. And nagkaroon lang siya ng liberation, nagkaroon lang siya ng peace of mind after he wrote. Kasi in the beginning, ayaw niyang isulat kasi against nga siya kay Father Moon, kay Reverend Moon. But after that, he gained everything. Okay? And that is how, okay, yung tinatawag nating returning resurrection of spirit who abide outside the paradise or outside Christian religion. They will work with the people on earth and then guide them to be reconnected to the Messiah. Okay? You can visit yung website yung inspirational painter. Yung inspirational painter na nagpaint ng new picture of Buddha. I-try mo ang i-search yun, Herwin, sa Google. Okay? Yung new picture of Buddha. Paint the new picture of Buddha. I-search mo. Okay? So, yun din, okay? He is just receiving inspiration. And when she tried to paint the picture of new Buddha, okay? Sino kayang lumabas? Yan. Mamaya, balikan natin kay Herwin. I-search niya muna yun ngayon. Okay? So the same thing, they will receive the same benefit as in those people that they are cooperating here on earth. Aju? Yan. And also, good spirits who live in conscientious life descend to good people on earth and cooperate with them. In the process, the spirit receive the same benefit as the people they have helped. Kaya kung minsan, di ba, meron tayong mga bigla na lang nakikita na mga figures. And sinasabi natin, ay, multo. Hindi po yun multo. These are spirits that is asking if we can guide and liberate them. Aju? Yan. Kaya nga, even yung lolo't lola natin, di ba, pag nakita natin yung figure, natatakot tayo. Pero dapat nga ba tayo matakot? Actually, hindi. Dapat hindi tayo matakot. But we should work together with them because they are requesting if we can liberate them. Aju? So how about the evil spirit? So in order for evil spirits to receive the benefit of returning resurrection, their works must have the effect of punishing earthly people to help them make conditions to indemnify their failures which have frustrated God's past effort to cleanse them of their sins. Okay? So yung mga evil spirit, ang ginagawa sa atin is, sila is yung pinaparusahan tayo. Okay? Kaya nga, yung mga difficulties natin, yung mga hardship natin, these are not what? Ano to mga to? These are challenges into our life that we needed to overcome and we needed to learn. And once we learn from it, that's the time that we are liberating evil spirit. Kaya nga kung tutuusin natin, wala naman talagang suffering eh. Right? Are you brothers and sisters? Wala talagang suffering. Anong meron? It is just a challenge that we needed to overcome so that we can liberate ourselves and we can liberate also other spirits around us. Aju? Yeah. So now let's study the unification of religions through returning resurrection. So paano ba magkaroon ng resurrection or unification ng mga religion? So Christ at the second advent is the central figure whose advent is expected in other religion as well. Okay? So hindi lang naman ang Christianity ang nag-aantay ng second coming. All religion actually they are waiting for the second coming of their founder. That's why all other religious leaders in the past, they are guiding their believers on earth to be reconnected. Okay? Yan. And once they are connected to the second advent, that's the time that they will work together and they will unite together. Kaya na nakita natin kanina, di ba? Yung unity ng Christian, Jew, and Muslim sa Israel. Okay? Because they are being guided by their spirits, by their leaders, nagkaroon ng opportunity that they can come together in peace and harmony. Centering on what? Centering on Christianity. So consequently, all spirits who believe in religion other than Christianity during their lifetime must guide the earthly believers of their respective religion to Christ at the second advent and assist them to believe in Him and attend Him in His work to fulfill God's will, even though the timing will vary depending upon their spiritual position. And all religion will eventually be united around Christianity. Kaya nga kung titingnan natin, dapat Christianity ang unang mag-work for unification of all religion. Pero kung titingnan natin, Christianity is, they are working for their own division. Doon nag-focus ang Christianity, kaya nawalan sila ng authority to unite all religion. Only this time, centering on the Pope that is trying to embrace. Okay? Kung hindi pa siguro dumating si True Father, hindi pa nagkaroon ng challenge si Father sa mga religious leaders, I doubt kung magkaroon ng unification ng mga iba't ibang religion sa ngayon. Aju? Yan. So unification of non-religious people through the resurrection. So a spirit who in their lifetime led a conscientious life but did not believe in any religion will also return to earth at the granted time to receive the benefit of returning resurrection. So they will guide conscientious earthly people to seek out Christ at the second advent, attend Him, and assist Him in fulfilling God's will. Okay? Meron akong personal experience nung nasa Visayas ako, nung nagbe-mission ako sa Visayas. Ito nangyari actually sa part ng Iloilo. Okay? Nung linelecturean ko si Father Diaz Siva, hindi ko alam na si Father Diaz Siva pala is siya yung parang ginawang spiritual advisor ng mga spiritual group sa buong Visayas. So after namin nag-lecture ng 7 days na everyday ni Father Siva noon, right after ng 7 days, after na nag-declare si Father Siva na he will join the blessing, okay? In-invite niya ako, Randy, can you come with me? Tapos sabi ko, Father, wala akong pera eh. No, they will provide everything. So pinuntahan namin lahat ng spiritual group sa buong Iloilo at saka sa ano tawag nan? Bacolod and papuntang Kawayan area. Eh, sinong taga doon? Taga Western Visayas. Sinong taga Western Visayas? Yan. Okay? And then, sabi ni Father Siva noon, samahan mo ako sa mass natin. And then doon ko na-experience. Kasi akala ko lang dati is yung ano tawag nan? 120 times in 3 hours na recitation of the Mass. Akala ko that is just a parang imagination na ginagawa. Pero meron pala talagang tradition na gano'n ng mga Orthodox. Okay. Yung original na Christian, meron silang gano'n during the time of revolution of their spirituality. And nagkaroon ako ng chance to witness that with Father Siva when we were in Kawayan. In 3 hours. And then sabi nung leader ng religious group na yon, sabi niya, you know what? While we are doing the sacred mass, sabi niya, I can sense that there is a higher spirit coming unto you. And doon kami nag-start na nagbigay ng Divine Principle seminars sa kanila during that time. And sabi nila, eto na nga yung inantay namin. And then nung pinakita ko yung symbol ng unification, yung red na gano'n, na round, sabi niya, paano ka nagkaroon nito? This is the highest symbol in heaven. No one can just see it. Okay? And that is how people in the spiritual guide their descendants here on earth. Conscientious people and non-religious spirit. They will all guide them to be connected to the Messiah. Okay? Sabi nga ng mga spiritual leaders nun doon, sabi niya, buti na lang, Father, dinala mo yung hope natin dito. Okay? So yung 3 days na pag-stay namin sa iba't ibang spiritual group sa Western Visayas noon, everyday may katayan ng baboy. Okay? Parang fiesta everyday. Every pupuntahan namin na religious group, merong fiesta. Okay? Kasi hindi naman ako makakain ng marami nun kasi half rice. Parang ginagawa ni Father, kalahati ng kanin lang yung kinakain ko nun. Okay? So that is how the returning resurrection of conscientious people in the spirit world. They will guide their descendants that is living on earth. Okay? Kaya nga even tayo din, di ba? Bago natin accept si True Father, we have received a lot of, ano yun? Mga messages from the spirit world. Okay? Minsan sinisipa pa tayo. Parang ako noon, nung sinurrender ko yung belt ko, sabi ko, ayoko na sa movement. Pinagalitan ba naman ako ng kapatid ko na namatay? Sabi sa akin, ano bang ginagawa mo? Okay? Kaya wala akong magawa. Pagbalik ko sa center, sabi ng leader ko, Randy, magpa-picture ka na. Okay? Yun pala, blessing na. Okay? That was actually, hindi November, it is September na nag-apply ako ng blessing in preparation for November blessing. That was 1997. Okay. Pero namatay yung kapatid ko 1996. 1996 siya namatay. And doon ako parang nag-negative ako sa movement nun kasi bakit ganon? Yun yung pinaka-close na kapatid ko. And during that time, yun yung parang ginising niya ako na bakit ganyan ka. Okay? So this is how people works. How people in the spirit world works in connection with the people on earth. They will guide us to be connected to the Messiah. Aju? Yeah. So ultimately, the purpose of God's providence of restoration is to save all humanity. Therefore, God intends to abolish hell completely. By participating in these various dispensations over a long course of time, all people will gradually converge towards the goal of God's ideal world. Yan. And ultimately, we can build one family under God through the Messiah. Through doing the works of the Messiah. Participating and encouraging our relatives and our physical relatives and spiritual relatives to work together. Kaya nga meron tayong tinatawag na tribal Messiah, vertical at saka horizontal tribal Messiah. Aju? Aju, brothers and sisters? So ang victory natin, hindi yung crucifixion ni Jesus Christ, but it is resurrection. And during His resurrection, it is again very important. We should understand how much important our portion of responsibility is, even in response towards the Messiah. Okay? Aju? So with that, we will be preparing for the next lecture. It is predestination. Magandang hapon po.